Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with the quality of Iman. The fact that we all have Iman in our hearts. It comes in a hadith. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Man qala la ilaha illallah mukhlisan dakhala al-Jannah. Whoever says the kalima, La ilaha illallah, that there is no God except Allah. That person, if he says that kalima with sincerity, with full sincerity, he will enter Jummah. That person will be destined for Jummah. So this kalima is such a big and heavy word, heavy phrase, that if one recites this phrase, he immediately becomes Muslim, and he becomes under the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day where no mercy shall be shown except the mercy of Allah, and that is Yawmul Qiyamah. And Yawmul Qiyamah, everyone will be running away from each other. يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ بَنِيهِ. That even the mother will be running from the child. They won't be worried or concerned about each other. Everyone will be running from everyone. But those who Allah bestows His mercy on them on that day, they are the successful ones. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after giving us Iman, He has blessed us with many bounties. We mentioned last week, وَمِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ, that it is from the mercy of Allah that He has created the night and day. لِتَسْكُنُوا فِيهِ. The purpose of the night, as we mentioned last week, was so that we can live in our houses in the night and sleep. We stay in our houses and we sleep during the night. وَلِتَبْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. And the daytime is so that we can leave our houses and we can seek from the bounties, seek from the treasures of Allah, seek our rizq, our halal rizq. وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. And so that we may be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the purpose of the night and day. Atheists don't even have the reason why there's a night and day. They say it's just science, it just happened, sun, moon, whatever. We know that the night and day is a mercy from Allah. We know that the food is a mercy from Allah. أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا أَنَّا نَسُوقُ الْمَاءَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ الْجُرُزِ فَنُخْرِجُ بِهِ زَرْعًا تَأْكُلُ مِنْهُ أَنْعَامُهُمْ وَأَنْفُسُهُمْ. Do they not see how we drive the water from the rain? We drive it to barren lands. So the rain clouds get driven to barren lands, and then rain falls down, and the dry lands become moist, they become fertile, and food grows, so that our cattle and all of us can eat from the food that Allah has caused to grow from the ground. But one interesting thing about this food, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided us with rizq from the ground, with sustenance from the ground, through the rains. In 2021, there was a vote. I think it was a UN vote, where each country was asked to vote that shall food be a basic human right or not? Shall we declare food as being a basic human right or not? Every single country, I think it's a no-brainer. Everyone said yes. Of course, food should be a basic human right, and there should be a law concerning this in the UN, okay, according to the international law. But two countries, they refused to vote yes, and two countries, they voted no. This was in 2021. And the two countries who voted no, that food should not be a basic human right, I think you guessed it, those two countries were USA and the illegal state of Israel, the ones who occupied Muslim land. So these are the only two countries who said food is not a human right. So this just shows how evil some people can be, that they will let people starve just for their own benefit, just so they can perceive themselves as winning, whereas they are not winning. So One interesting thing about right to defend, Australia and Anthony Albanese and all the politicians keep saying that, we believe that Israel has a right to defend itself, right to defend. But actually, according to international law, the only country in the world that doesn't have a right to defend themselves is the illegal state of Israel. Why should they have a right to defend? It's not their land. The land that they are occupying belongs to the indigenous Palestinian people. They have no right to defend themselves. And the other thing about right to defend, the West always proclaims and announces and stresses and emphasizes upon their own right to defend. Whenever something happens to the West, they have a right to defend. And not only do they defend, they overkill. Whatever they're defending, they end up killing a bunch of civilians. So, but when do the Muslims have a right to defend? Why is it that only the Westerners have a right to defend? Why is it that countries from the West, from Europe, from America, Israel, why is it that only they have a right to defend? Why don't Muslim countries ever have a right to defend? Why is it that the West can cause so much oppression in the Middle East? Wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Yemen. Why is it that the Muslims never ever have a right to defend? Why is it that only Westerners have that right? So clearly it's not a right, it's a privilege that only Westerners feel like they enjoy. So, when Muslims are oppressed, we have to stay quiet, according to the West. We have to stay quiet, stay humble. When Israel bombs and does airstrikes on Lebanon, on Iraq, Iran, Syria, all of these places, what happens as soon as Israel does these airstrikes, USA comes out with a statement saying to these countries, saying to Iran, saying to Syria, saying to Yemen, saying to which other country was it? Lebanon, the USA always has a statement that these countries should not retaliate. These countries should not, take revenge. They should not take revenge upon Israel. They should be calm. They should be level-headed. They should not do anything crazy. But when anything happens to Israel, no such statement is issued. When an airstrike is done on Israel, America doesn't go to Israel, hey, stay calm, don't overreact, don't kill civilians. But when Israel bombs Muslim countries, there is that statement from the USA that Muslims should not overreact, should not kill civilians, should not take revenge. So there's a clear hypocrisy here. And one interesting thing that I was listening to online is the datification of events. That whenever something happens to USA or Israel, they put a date on it. October 7, 9/11, so on and so forth. They put a date on it. Why? Because that way, it's like dates are easy to remember, right? So whenever Israel does anything to Palestine, does anything to their neighbors, if USA does anything to anyone else, there's no date on it. We don't have a date where we remember it every year, where it's an easy reference point. As soon as someone says October 7, everyone understands what they're talking about. But what we don't realize is that 76 years of oppression have occurred from the state of Israel towards our Palestinian Muslim brothers and sisters. Yet there's no datification of events. So why is this important is when we're debating with the Zionists. The Zionists can easily say two words and, they made their point, October 7th. But then if we want to rebuttal them, if we want to counter their argument and talk about all the Israeli oppression, all the oppression that Israel has done to the Muslim countries, we have to, we can't just say a date and they'll remember, right? We can't just say, Nakba on this day, so on and so forth. Well, it doesn't work. We have to actually explain that, no, Israel did this on this day, and this is how they harmed civilians, harmed the population, displaced 750,000 Palestinians. So when we argue with them, our arguments are more verbose. We have to use more words, whereas they can use two words, October 7th. So that means that it's easier for them to argue with us, easier for them to debate with us. They'll say two words. October 7, and then it's like, for us to counter it, we have to mention several words. We have to mention 76 years of oppression. We have to say too much, just so that we can counter their argument. And by that time, we've lost the attention of the people that we're debating. So, the fact that they used October the 7th as an excuse to genocide the Palestinians, they were waiting for this day. Israel and USA and their allies were waiting for this day. They were waiting for an excuse so that they could take out Gaza. And so that they could commit a genocide, eventually clearing Gaza so that the Jews can steal their land and settle. In fact, they're already stealing so much land in the West Bank over the past year. So this was an excuse. We can say that when Israel retaliated against the Palestinians, this was their justification that we can tell the world that no, they did this on October the 7th, so now we're going to wipe out their whole population without any accountability. So much accountability whenever Muslims do something. So much accountability when Muslims do something, but no accountability when Israel does anything. For the past 76 years, no accountability. Even when they, kicked the British out of Israel in 1947, they bombed a hotel, the Israelis, they bombed a hotel, kicked the British out, the British ran, gave the control to the Israelis. No accountability. The British didn't retaliate, the British didn't say, how dare you. They're just like, okay, we're out, we're going back to our country, and you guys do what you need to do. And that's what happened. In 1948, the Jews owned 10% or less than 10% of the land in Palestine. And yet, due to the UN resolution in 1948, the UN gave the State of Israel, they gave them about, I think, 54 to 56% of the land in Palestine. And a minority was given to the Palestinians, who said, no, why should we accept this? I don't think anyone would accept that their land is stolen. What would happen if Mexico came to USA today and says, hey, you know what, those southern states like Texas, they all have Spanish names, right? Like El Paso, San Diego, San Francisco, all have Spanish names. What if Mexico goes to the US and says, hey, you know what, this is our land? New Mexico, there's a state in USA. What if Mexico goes up to USA and says, hey, you know what, that's our land, we want it back. Will the USA tolerate it? So why is it that we have to tolerate when people steal our land? USA would never ever tolerate Mexico or any country stealing their land. Mexico saying, you know what, El Paso, Texas, San Diego, California, these are all the Spanish names, this is our land. The USA would never have it. They would go war to Mexico. They would go to war with Mexico. But when Muslim land is stolen, when Palestinian land is stolen, why is it that we are not allowed to do anything about it? Why is it that we have to just sit quiet and let the Zionists take over our land and allow the Zionists to cause an apartheid? Because that's what's happening in Palestine. Is that there's an apartheid regime. That even we mentioned about food being a basic human right. 97% of the fresh water in Palestine is given to actually the Jews, the Zionists, to the Israelis. 97% is given to the Israelis and only 3% is given to the Palestinians. And I'm talking about even the West Bank. So Israel has been punishing Palestine with lack of access to water. Palestinians don't have access to water, maybe a couple hours a day. Imagine living like this. Only a couple hours a day, you have access to water. And the rest of the day, you don't have access. You don't have access to water. This is the type of environment that Palestinians have been living in for 76 years. And my other question is about feminism. That where are the feminists defending all the women and children being killed in Gaza? Why are they not defending the women and children being killed in Gaza? Why aren't they defending all the men who died and leaving their wives as widows, leaving their children as orphans. Why is it that none of the feminists are upset about this? The Western liberal feminists is who I'm talking about. They impose their ideologies onto us. They want us Muslims to follow their ideologies, to follow their ways of their life. But when USA comes into Afghanistan, comes into Iraq, comes into Palestine, and harms innocent women and children, or kills their husband, thus leaving them without a source of income, then the feminists are quiet. The feminists don't speak up. And they don't fight for the rights of Palestinian women and children. That's why I said that the right to defend oneself, the right to defend oneself is actually a privilege that is only afforded to the West, not to anyone else who is not from the West. So why should we care about this genocide so much? I'll finish with this final point. Why should we care about it? I mean, there's genocides happening around the world. Our Chinese Muslim brothers and sisters are being oppressed. Our Rohingya brothers and sisters are being oppressed. Our Sudanese brothers and sisters are being oppressed. There's oppression of Muslims around the world. But why we should be concerned about this genocide especially? We should be concerned about every genocide, of course. Human life, whether it's Muslim or non-Muslim, every life is precious. Unfortunately, the West fails to see that. The West sees that their lives are worth more than Arab lives, Muslim lives. So why should we be concerned about the genocide in Palestine? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa. Glorified is he who traveled with his slave by night. His slave being Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam traveled by night from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa, which is in Jerusalem. Aqsa means the furthest most masjid. It was considered the furthest most masjid at the time. Alladhi barakna hawlahu. Such a masjid, Masjid al-Aqsa, that we have blessed that which is around Masjid al-Aqsa. The land around Masjid al-Aqsa, Allah mentions in the Holy Quran. This is a blessed land. This is a holy land. This is a land that Muslims should make ziyarah, should visit. So obviously this blessed land, this holy land, this Islamic land, we should fight to defend this land. We should fight to defend this land. And how can we help our brothers and sisters in Palestine? How can we help them and make sure that this mass starvation, this mass water shortage, all of this, doesn't take over? We should donate. I think I mentioned this last week. We need to donate. We need to take out our wallets and we need to spend for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also there's protests going on around the world, which is great, mashallah. But also we need to wake up in tahajjud, wake up in fajr and make dua for our brothers and sisters all around the world, all those that are facing oppression. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make things easy for the Muslims. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow the Zionists and the Westerners to see the light being that every single human life is precious. Every single human life is worth the same. It's not that Western lives are worth more than Muslim lives, which is what's the assumption nowadays. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. الحمد لله الذي من رحمته جعل لكم الليل والنهار لتسكنوا فيه ولتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون ويوم يناديهم فيقول أين شركائي الذين كنتم تزعمون ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له في الخلق والأمر ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله هو الذي قال الله تعالى عنه وما أرسلناك إلا رحمة للعالمين وصلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين خصوصا على خلفاء الراشدين المهديين أما بعد فيا معشر المسلمين اعلم أن الإسلام بني على خمس شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله فمن قال لا إله إلا الله مخلصا دخل الجنة وإقام الصلاة فالصلاة معراج المؤمن وإيتاء الزكاة فالزكاة مطهر للمال والصدقة تطفئ غضب الرب وصوم رمضان فالصوم جنة أي لتدريب النفس وحج البيت من استطاع إليه سبيلا فقد قال الله تعالى في القرآن العظيم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير صدق الله العلي العظيم ويا معشر المسلمين فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن خير الأمور عوازمها وشر الأمور محدثاتها فكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار فقد قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مفتاح الجنة الصلاة ومفتاح الصلاة الطهور أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم إنه تعالى جواد كريم ملك بر رؤوف رحيم الحمد لله نستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة فمن يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد واهتدى ومن يعصهما فإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا فقد قال الله تعالى في القرآن العظيم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداءك أعداء الدين وانصر عبادك الموحدين واجعل اللهم البلاد الإسلام آمنة مطمئنة يا رب العالمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى اللهم اكفنا بحلالك عن حرامك وأغننا بفضلك عمن سواك ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين عباد الله رحمكم الله اتل ما أوحي إليك من الكتاب وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. Straighten your lines, please, and also mobile phones on silent.
الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله. More space in the main hall. I can see brothers walking in. Please fill up the main hall before the side hall. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أحضرت الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس والليل إذا عسعس والصبح إذا تنفس إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين وما صاحبكم بمجنون الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله وعلى آل إبراهيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله